Oh my god.
What up, guys? F-Dot didn't believe that I unmuted him, but I did this time. I did, and I even started the recording. Like, we're on point today, and you know what? No, I'm trying my hardest, because today is a special day.
Is it special enough that you changed the title?
That's not my job.
We're just chilling on
That's
Monday.
not my job.
Well, you know what? This is delegation. All right, I gotta log in now.
You haven't made me an editor. You can't delegate when you haven't delegated.
Because I don't trust you. Oh, that's the
You
wrong
shouldn't
password.
trust me. Good.
My keyboard's blowing up. The microphone most likely. Anyway, what's up, guys? It is Monday, the Tuesday after the 4th of July.
It is? Yeah. How many leftovers do you have?
Not many. I actually wasn't feeling too hot, so I was pretty boring. But what did you do? Did you guys
sorry to hear that? Yeah, we had a nice party. We had about 10 people in the house.
Damn, you guys actually. Damn, I'm impressed. Y'all have friends and stuff.
Yeah, we have friends. It's pretty cool. We had burgers and steaks and dogs and Loki and mac and cheese and like a cranberry crumble and like cupcakes.
There it is.
And
I was like, this sounds like a good barbecue. Where's the Krett? And then all of a sudden you're like, and cranberry crumble.
I didn't make that. I made the macaroni. I made the macaroni, and I just ate it because I made 2 pounds of macaroni. So we have so many leftovers.
Macaroni.
Yeah, mac and cheese. It's a big
mac and cheese.
The bread topping.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Krett.
So F-Dot, I got you something.
What?
I got you something. I have a gift for you.
Cranberry crumble.
It's not. No. Do you have chat open?
In the cranberry. Yes, I do.
I got you a gift. There you go.
Oh my goodness, Krett.
That's right.
Thank you for supporting me for 3 months.
I have only supported you for 3 months. That's true. And if you want to support F-Dot, you can also sub for 3 months.
Oh, you're so nice.
With wonderful subscription benefits like his face.
You do get F-Dot face? Oh man,
it's actually like one of my favorite emotes on Twitch. It's right up there with ELO W.
ELO, that is pretty good.
Yeah, they're good.
I saw the ELO M, the backwards one with Wolfie upset. That looks really good.
Did he actually make it?
No.
But
you linked it to me.
Yeah. He was. It was like 11 a.m. and he was like, or 11 p.m. Wolfie doesn't stream in the morning, and he was like, "I don't want to play ranked." So he just talked about the state of the game for like 2 hours. And at one point, he was talking about something he didn't like, and he just made that face, and I screenshot it. I was like, "This is the best fucking face." You can also follow Freddy on Twitter if you want more F-Dot faces.
No, I'm not a fucking meme.
No, you're not. You're not a meme. You're definitely not. Alright.
Why am I your pinned tweet, Freddy? What is sissy? Yes, nas un.
So,
no!
I got you something. What did you get me?
Hold on one sec. I got it.
It's my birthday on Saturday. This better be good. No, Sunday. It's my birthday on Sunday.
I actually did get you something. I got you a Guan code.
Hey! I already have one, but that's awesome.
And also this! Suck it, Krett!
No! No, and you know what? I'm actually... Have you ever heard of Krettsmas?
I've never heard of Krett. You know what? Here's a Guan code, chat. No, I've never heard of Krettsmas before.
It's a holiday, end of the year, usually in December, but on July 12th, it's Krettsmas, which is pretty similar.
Krettsmas.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Already done.
Yeah.
You don't get a holiday.
I do get a holiday, and to celebrate it, I have a very special gift for everyone. It's super secret, but you'll find out on Sunday.
No, you're not. No. You don't get Krettsmas.
Yeah, happy Krettsmas, everybody.
No, I am never going to celebrate a holiday in your name. Are you a joke?
Yes, I am a joke. The entire thing is that I'm a joke. That's our show.
No,
I'm a joke. I'm a joke. You're a meme. That's the show. That's our show, everybody. We're done.
Krettsmas?
Yes, Krettsmas. There's also Krettsgiving.
No, okay, I'll give you Krettsmas. I'm not going to give it to you. But
you gave me Krettsmas. You just said he said it, guys. It's a holiday.
What do we have on the docket for today?
Let's talk about Smite.
God damn it.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. No, my macaroni was really good. That was the second topic. Is that Krettsmas gift and macaroni.
What kind of macaroni? You can't just say macaroni.
Yeah, macaroni and cheese.
Oh,
It's
right.
elbows with a cheese sauce and like a bread crust topping. Like, it's just macaroni.
How'd you make your bread crust topping?
You take breadcrumbs and you mix them with butter.
Sounds terrible.
No, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Krettsmas. I don't support this Krettsmas. So
You
anyway,
don't support
man.
me. I have
Did
supported
somebody
you
respond,
for
Kelly?
3 months.
I'll support you for 3 months. 3 months from now.
Okay.
How about that?
Good.
That's good? That's good?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go subscribe to your YouTube channel. YouTube.com/
It's actually right there, above my head.
Kretuhtuh.
No, other way.
Oh.
Yeah, over there. Yeah.
Oh well. Oh well.
See, we have it set up so both of us look towards the window.
Really? That's my window.
Yeah, that's my window too.
Well, ow, I almost fell. But I was going to make it sunny.
And you know what?
What?
I'm looking north. So I'm actually looking at you.
I don't have a compass, but
Well,
I'm
just
looking.
know it's north.
I'm looking into my trash, so I'm looking at you. Just directly at you. Directly at you, Krett. That's where we're at.
Enough
right
of
now.
the shenanigans.
So last week we talked a little bit about just meta going nuts, right? Everybody was, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
what's going on? I don't know what's happening with the cams. There's a double jungle. That is what's going to be the strategy. It's got to be double jungle. Double jungle is the way to go. That's it, double jungle. So how's double jungle working out for you?
Really good. I mean, me and Mike just shit on some kids with it today. Mike completely destroyed. So here's yeah. Me and Mike play casuals together. It's a good time. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about double jungle, right? People don't know what the fuck it is, or how to do it, or why it's good. It's just kind of another start, and it has different advantages and different disadvantages. And that's, I think, the theme of this patch. There are a lot of things you can do. This patch is like the solo lane from last split, but everywhere.
Keep going with that. What do you mean?
Well, solo lane last split, you played... Like, what god has not been played competitively in the solo lane?
Oh,
Or not even competitively, sorry. What god has not been played, like, legitimately? Like, at one point, I'm pretty sure every god has been like, wow, this is actually pretty good in the solo lane.
Not Geb.
No, Gab on release was actually really good in the solo lane.
On release, okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He
Like, you played him on release and you're like, wow, he's a really good solo laner.
P-Bat got legendary Geb in a couple of days playing him in the solo lane exclusively.
Yeah, because he just scaled so hard and you were like, well, I'm huge.
What was on Maniac's travel form? That's actually so there's the players actually fill out when lands are coming or whatnot. The players fill out travel forms, right, with all their documents. Hey, I'm from
what up?
I'm from Queens, New York. I want to fly out of LaGuardia. No, you never want to fly out of LaGuardia. You want to fly to JFK. I am asthmatic, so I need my inhaler, right? All the stuff that's necessary.
Well, no, because
so
it's
it lists like your name, your blah 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 blah, and then also has a special request. And Maniac requested that Dan pick him up, bring him to McDonald's before he brings him to Hi-Rez. And the answer was no.
Let me know.
It was like, can I get McDonald's when I land in America?
I'm milking you.
This is what our players put on their travel form. So, little behind the scenes anecdote right there. Because you saw on Twitter, Hi-Rez Dan or Hi-Rez ABC says, like, we were not able to fulfill your special request. So, that was pretty funny. What's up, Loki? How's Loki doing?
She's pretty good. I was just completely not listening to your story and talking to Drew.
But so I mean, last week we talked about the impact of this crazy freaking meta with regards to just a casual viewer, and you can catch that. You catch that video up on YouTube if you want. It was a long one. Krett got really passionate, and I kind of rolled my eyes a whole bunch because I don't think he understands what casual is. But it's good because
we actually never defined casual for that conversation.
Sure, that's actually, I'll give you that.
I feel like both of us, by the end of the conversation, we were talking about, like, these mythical casual players that may or may not exist. No, we were just talking about, like, the most casual viewer. The guy who, like, just, like,
smart.
the guy who doesn't need to go to Smite Troll because he's already doing it. Like,
Sure.
we were talking about, like, casual players I don't think exist. And actually, there was a funny YouTube comment that I saw where someone was like, it was something about casual players ruining World of Warcraft with their LFRs. But, like...
Oh, the welfare epics! Get out
Yeah,
of here!
the welfare epics argument. But what was funny to me, and he ended his thing with something like, Hi-Rez shouldn't listen to casual players. But, like, I didn't know who he was, and you probably didn't know who he was, which kind of by default makes him a casual. I mean, depends on your definition of casual,
Sure,
right? Certainly
sure.
non-competitive.
Yeah, non-competitive.
So,
for sure.
I don't know. It's weird, man. That's such a long discussion, and it goes in so many different directions. Like, what is casual? Who cares about what, etc.
And that's where you can find out that.
And
Krett
casuals are
philosophy.
kind of even the players that, like, don't answer the surveys, so you don't even know what they think.
That's the now.
The players who don't answer surveys are casuals. There you go.
In any event, that's what we sort of attacked last week, talking about how it should be, whether or not the game should be, as Krett and I put it, a railroad. I actually spoke to a developer that really liked that term railroad and enjoyed it for the purposes of our conversation.
Yeah.
So I think we nailed that. So 10 points on the metaphor. But so we talked about how what it's like is Conquest rallying off of Allied's old video. Is it just too hard? Is there too much shit to know? Blah, blah, blah. And now with the changing of the meta, is it too overwhelming or is it a lot of fun because of the lack of change? And obviously that's an open-ended question, which is why we spent freaking 2 hours on it. So it's right there. You guys can check it up on the YouTube. And this week, we'll touch it a little bit. We've got to talk a little bit about esports prizing, and I'm sure you have some other Macaroni-based opinion to talk about. But we'll start off things with last week, continuation. We already talked about the casuals. Let them get their dirty welfare ethics.
Well, let's redefine railroad real quick because it's such a core term.
Sure.
Right, like it's the center of the argument. So the railroad is the stuff that you do pretty much every game in the first 5 minutes where a caster, like, they don't even talk about it, but if they could, they'd be like, in 2 seconds, this guy's going to leave the solo lane and walk to mid. In 3 seconds, the mid laner and the solo laner will either invade their back harpies if they have lane pressure, or they'll take their own. Like, etc., etc. The railroad is just sort of what the meta tells you to do for the first 5 minutes in such a way that's so strict that you're following a railroad. There are tracks.
Right.
Now, it might have a fork, but that's just a more complex railroad.
Exactly. It's all just coming out of the idea that there is no real choice. There's the illusion of choice, and while that sounds
there's a
very
best way to do
philosophical, right? While that sounds very philosophical, at the end of the day, if you want to do things right, with regard to the old meta, we'll speak to it. Well, if you're mid, you start off at red and you leash it a certain way so that you can get it, go back to the lane and do the lane hits blue, and then they go to the lane. That's the railroad. You could start back harpies and hit the enemy's back harpies, but that's not as efficient.
It's not good to run from your back harpies to their back harpies. Not recommended.
Right. So, now, let's talk about how that really impacts the pros. Because the pros at the top end, if the railroad isn't in the game by itself,
they'll establish it.
Right. Krett last week was talking about how a game can establish that. So sort of like you're talking about staggered camps, right?
Well, yeah, so if the game doesn't tell you that there's a railroad, if it doesn't give it to you, the players will establish it. And this is a thing in every game, right? StarCraft 2 has build orders, which are like the orders that you build the things. And there's a limited number of good ones. Right? Like, you probably shouldn't go 2 SCVs and then build or I don't fucking know StarCraft. There are a lot more bad build orders than there are good ones.
Keep building SCVs the entire time.
Yeah, you don't want to just never stop building SCVs and not build anything else. Even though that would be the most efficient SCV production temporarily. Anyway, so... yeah, the players will distill that out of the game. That's what pro players do. It's a big part of their job and the role that they play.
That's how we wound up where we're at.
Yeah, and it's a communal thing. It's not just one team. It's at the very least 2 teams, but probably more like 6 or 8, right? Like, Cloud9 might have been the
best
person.
example. The best example is Zapman and Hunter builds.
Sure.
Right? There are, and it's just step away from the map, but the idea is that just like there's a bazillion items and you can build all these items, and Zapman is seemingly always the one that winds up doing the math, or somebody does the math for Zap. I don't really care. Zapman comes out with a build and everybody goes, huh, well, that's my build. And on a similar scale, the map gets figured out eventually.
Yes.
So at some point, when mid-harpies were taken away at 0, teams weren't just like, duh, this is what we do. And admittedly, it was a little easier to figure out than it is this time around because there's just less options. But it wasn't, mid-harpies are gone, I automatically know what to do. Teams figured it out for a while, then eventually it was like, well, everybody goes red to blue to lane, and then everybody goes speed to blue to lane. That's it. That's what we do. And now everybody, but at some point, that had to be figured out. It wasn't given to a pro.
And it, of course, does, like, take time, but it's basically, like, you take the map and you just sort of distill it down to, like, the best possible build by, like, trying new things. It's basically evolution, right? You try new things. Some of them suck, some of them don't, and then you keep doing the things that don't. So, at some point, Andinster left the solo lane after one wave and made it to mid, and like that became a thing, or whatever. And there are forks and different ways that the railroad travels, and like sometimes you invade, sometimes you don't invade, whatever. Right. So that's the railroad. That's what it does. So for pro players, when you have a very complex map, what is the best kind of complexity for a map to have, right? Like, what's the perfect complex map? Okay.
Multiple options. That is always...
So kind of like rocks, paper, scissors-y, but then, like, more rocks, paper... Well, the rocks, paper, scissors that, like, 11-year-olds play, where they just keep adding different shit you can do.
Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, nuclear warfare, dog. Yeah. Dog wins everything, by the way.
Of course it does.
Dog always wins. You just dog.
Just dog.
But in any event, yeah. So when you look at something like that, I think that the best option is options itself. Rock, paper, scissors, I'm never a fan of because it's just like, in Smite is too long of a game. You can do rock, paper, scissors in short round games. Oh, I lost my Hearthstone game, didn't I?
Yep.
I remembered that I started a game as we went live. Anyway, so in short round games, Counter-Strike, football, anything where it's like you get many shots at one small thing, rock, paper, scissors can work. Your Counter-Strike strat, well, you went A and so did they, you lose. Rock beats scissors. Hooray. But in a Smite game where it's 30, 40 minutes, I don't want to choose start rock and they choose start paper, and because of that, I just lose after 12 minutes.
You want it more like, you start rock and they start paper, and that means that you have to play to different strengths than they have.
Right, and the idea, like, I think
I'm going to use StarCraft again. You want to have some level of balance from different places, right?
Yeah, of course.
Due to the nature of StarCraft, you have to balance Zerg against Protoss. That's sort of what this is, right? You have one star, and it has to be balanced against another star in some way. Now, it might have a losing matchup, but there's probably something good about it and probably something bad about it.
Exactly, and one of the core... I like the idea that double jungle is an option, but I don't like the idea that double jungle is a necessity.
Be too inaccessible to casual players, because it's not something you can do if you don't know the other guy jungling. It just is ass.
And I'm like, that was last week. This week, I'm an elitist jerk. I don't give a fuck about no casual. I don't give a damn if you play Arena League. I don't want to hear from the people asking for domination. I don't want to think about the people that have 100,000 hours played of Assault and complain the one time they come into Conquest Casual because they can't play Hebo ADC. I don't give a damn about that person.
Sure.
All right? This week, I'm talking about the upper crust. Not necessarily pros, but I'm talking about masters. I'm talking about invested people. People that will forge that upper conversation. The pros, the people that are avid viewers, no tongue-in-cheek, people like you and me, the talking heads, the pundits of the community, the commentators. These are
I don't want to
people
be in the
talking
same group
about,
as you.
right?
Put me in the
Fuck
pros
you.
group.
Whoa. Calm down, Adonis. Anyway, so you're looking at a situation where the people that are educated should have multiple choices and multiple options in my ideal situation. So you could go double jungle. You could go single
Double
jungle.
mid. Whatever.
I would
Right,
love
the-
that.
yeah,
That'd
yeah,
be cool.
so-
I don't think that's a reality, but that'd be
We're
cool.
talking about options that don't necessarily exist. Like, you want the sort of game where doing a 10-second Gold Fury is like maybe something that could be good, right? Like,
Sure,
maybe in
yeah.
the right situation you could take advantage of that. But obviously you don't want every game to be like, oh, let's go fight over the Gold Fury at 10 seconds, because that would be stupid. Yeah, so does the current map accomplish that? Well, that's a bad
That's what I was
question.
gonna ask
That's a
you.
bad question because we don't have enough time to tell. Like, it's too soon.
too soon.
The meta hasn't settled.
And I would actually like to talk about the whole too soon nonsense.
Too soon. You have awakened me too soon.
Like, patch dropped,
Yeah.
hit Twitter, everyone's talking shit about the patch.
Yeah.
5 days later, Incon's like, dude, I love it, nothing's changed. Weekend's like, I'm coming around. Laz is like, all right, I can sort of see the ups. So people have started to come around.
I think part
on
of that,
patch.
this is a patch that was too abstract to knee-jerk respond to. Now, there
Agreed.
are patches that are not like that, right? There are patches where it's like, hey, we nerfed Aussie. Or no, hey, we nerfed Ichavolt. And we're trying to nerf Hunters. And it's like, no, that just nerfs Osiris.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Like,
that, like,
you can knee-jerk
all right.
to a small balance change like that, like, is something that you can sort of mentally
because it's
evaluate.
quantifiable.
Small. Yeah, it is.
Mercury's
And,
new
like,
passive is now Hasten Fatalis. No, don't do
yeah, yeah.
that. Right? Like, that's,
Right,
you can make that, but in this, you're changing a whole bunch of stuff. It needs time to sit and simmer.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think, well, and the other thing is that, like, you can learn about a patch by just talking about it. Like, there was a day last week where me and Mike just talked about different starts for, like, 6 hours. You would have loved it.
That's
You would have loved
awesome.
it. Yeah.
Invite me next time. I'll
Okay,
keep my
Mr.
mouth
Hi-Rez.
closed.
Sure. No,
I'll keep my
it
mouth
was really
closed.
cool because, have you seen Google Drawings or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, so I pulled up a Smite map on that.
Okay.
And
That's
we
cool.
just drew on it. And
That's
it was
awesome.
really cool. Yeah, it was really cool stuff. And I think that's the sort of changes that this patch has created, but it's not something that you can begin to understand on any level without talking about it, thinking about it, playing it competitively, playing it casually. Like, there's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, exactly. That's you nailed it, and that's why I was like, dude, y'all gotta like think about.
But here's the
this
thing,
just
right?
a little bit.
And I know this discussion isn't about casuals. I don't think that undermines my argument from last week, because that's not what my argument is speaking about. Like, I can like it. I'm not
Yeah.
arguing for myself.
course, of
I'm
course, of
arguing
course.
for someone who's potentially trying to learn it, where I think it could be just
yeah,
too thick.
yeah, two different conversations for sure. And,
Totally.
and I, I'll
And
defend
we've
you
already
on
had
that.
the last one.
But yeah, but and so when it comes to the high end stuff, and I mean, do you think black and white? Do you think that this is a meta? I hate the overuse of that term. That's a different conversation. Do you think that this meta is a meta that will allow multiple strategies, or do you think it's
Well-
like last time where it's just do the camps, and if you have exceptional clear, maybe you get a back camp?
I
Because
think-
that's what it was.
I think a meta that allows different strategies is something that's like starting to become contradictory, right? Like, a meta is a thing you do and a way you play the game. Now, you can have a meta and a counter meta. That's the sort of thing that I think shows up in Magic a lot, where it's like, this
Sure.
is the deck that you go for, and this is the deck that beats that deck.
Yeah, I mean that happens. I mean, most notably in Hearthstone, since it's an online
Sure.
ladder, where it's just like, well, zoo or tons of minions win, and then, well, if you want to become legend, you just play a deck that beats tons of minions, right?
Yeah. And then,
And
like,
that's all time-based. And that
if you
truly
play
is
that deck
metagame.
against something else, you might just get shit on.
That
And if it
truly
doesn't,
is
it
metagame.
becomes the next meta deck or whatever. Now, I think this map is a little bit too complex to see something like that, where like a 3-way or a 4-way or some sort of cycle.
Sure.
But and so I don't think meta is the right word, at least the way we've been using it in Smite, to apply
It's
to
not.
what could potentially result now, what I think we hope would result now of like different starts, different strategies, whatever. I think you have a standard, and we could call that the meta, right? The thing that you do in casuals because you don't know that guy, not because he's not good enough to do it. If you're, a good player, you're probably getting in good casuals playing against other good players, and he's good enough to do whatever if everyone was on curse and actually trying to work together.
Yeah.
But you're not on curse, and you're not trying to work together, so you're just going to do the standard. Maybe if you're like, oh, they have a raw solo, we should probably invade that. Maybe you and your boy go and invade, and like, sure, you don't know the jungler, but you're Osiris and he's Bellona, so you could kill the raw.
That's good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You got a big old heavy hammer, and he's not going anywhere.
And I think that's starting to depart from just having one meta a little bit. I don't know if there's really a term for like this whole aggregate of ways to play. And I don't want to call them all like an aggregate of metas or multiple different metas because by definition there's just one meta.
They're starting strategies, they're game plans, and
it's game plans.
We will have a annual day of semantics because this is a conversation that doesn't need to happen, but I'm sure we both have a lot on. Like the whole is esports a sport? Doesn't ever need to happen, but it's still fun to do. Maybe someday we'll dissect the word meta because everyone uses it incorrectly and nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about. But
at the same time, if everyone uses it incorrectly, it's not incorrect anymore. For example, the word careen. You know how people are like, oh, the car went careening off the cliff?
Yeah.
That's not what that means.
No, it's
careening is when a boat goes left and right.
Yes, it is.
Yep. That pisses my dad off so much. He is 87, and careening is for boats.
I can't wait. I'm going to go to Connecticut and careen past your house, and then I'm going to knock on the door and be like, excuse me, did you see a black Acura just careen past here? And see what he says. That's what I'm going to do for Krettsmas. Merry fucking Krettsmas, Kretts!
My mom would probably love to see you again.
She's a nice woman, actually.
Yeah, she really is. I don't know why I'm not nice.
No relation. The apple falls.
Oh yeah, Zayed. Okay, so Zayed making a joke in chat, and an acceptable joke. Meta is the accepted standard. Cheese is anything not 100% conforming to meta. Let's talk about what cheese is, because cheese is really important to have in your game, in your competitive game. Cheese is really important.
Why is cheese important?
Why is cheese
Drybear
important?
would not agree.
Because cheese is fun. Cheese is dynamic and interesting. Cheese is the sort of thing. It's a gambit.
And cheese is the thing that you have to look out for despite not having to look out for.
Yeah.
You always bring up the 4-gate, right? Where it's just like, nobody's going to do this, but if you get hoodwinked by
the moment you say no one is going to do this, you're gonna get 5-man invaded.
The moment you say that nobody does this, denial wins by split push Loki. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's
yeah, exactly.
So it's something that you always have to look out for. It's something that you always have to be aware of. But it's not necessarily the leading strategy because there's so many things that go against it. But
well, and the other thing is, like, cheese is a key part of having multiple choices in a game. It's crucial. Cheese is just a different kind of choice.
Okay.
Cheese is the kind of choice where you're like, where it's simple, easily countered, but powerful, and that's certainly legitimate. Cheese, basically, cheese is legitimate. Now, it's kind of broken. If anyone has ever seen Chris G play Marvel vs. Capcom, like, cheese is broken, but he's still beating your ass, right?
Yeah, and as the early 2000s philosopher Vin Diesel playing Dominic Skinetti? What the hell was his fucking name in Fast
Oh
and
God,
Furious?
Dominic.
Dom Skinetti?
I don't know.
Spumenti?
Everyone just called him
Spumoni?
Don. Dom.
Yeah, it's just Dom with the wrench, you know? It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, kid. Winning is winning, right? And by that very virtue,
Toretto.
it doesn't matter. Toretto. It doesn't matter if you win by a cheese or a legitimate strategy. Winning is winning, and that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you got different options, I guess cheese is all right.
No, you don't want overwhelming cheese. You don't want old
Dom
wa.
spaghetti.
You don't want old wa. Oh, because old wa was just like, look at this thing we did, and now you have to spend entire game looking for me.
Old wa is totally fine if the other team also has old wa.
Yeah.
The problem with Old Wa was the fact that, well, I'm the only guy that can actually do this. But, and if there was and even if that was the case, if there was an item that you could buy that prevented people from spawning minions or some bullshit, right?
Sure.
That'd be fine. The only problem with Old Wa was that there was no counterplay.
Yeah,
counterplay.
and cheese by definition does have counterplay.
Exactly. Cheese should have a lot of counterplay. That's what makes it like, man... You lost
that, and that's what cheese is, right? That's what it does to you.
It's the old the baseball player has the ball, fakes, throws it, the guy steps off the base, and then he gets tagged. Like, that's cheesy, but you got smoked, and that's sort of like what I mean. Cheese, sure. I don't care if it's cheesy or not. I mean, I don't think every strategy needs to be some incredibly complex, 7-turn.
And I think to an extent, cheeses can
combo.
become part of the standard, right? Like, I think double hog invading and just taking your opponent's speed in blue because they can't stop you is cheese.
Sure.
But if you play a mage against me last split, I'm gonna do that. Because you're putting yourself in a situation where I can. Like, I think cheese is sort of an important part of the meta in some way. Like, in some ways... cheese determines the meta. The meta involves a lot of different ways that you don't get cheesed.
To protect the cheese.
Yeah. Like, in a lot of ways...
Prevent the cheese.
Yeah. Prevent the cheese and, like, anti-cheese, right? Like, you do this thing or we cheese you.
I mean, that's the
or you don't do
law.
this thing and we do cheese you.
Last patch's laws of Warriors in the Soul Lane only
was like, if you don't, we're going to cheese you.
Yeah, that's anti-cheese.
But it was important anti-cheese. Because, like, mages in the Soul Lane were sort of like a different kind of cheese.
And so, I mean, when it comes to the word meta, again, splitting hairs, meta really talks to me as far as team composition.
Sure.
And the cheese of Double Hog Invade actually shaped the meta of no mages in the solo lane.
Totally.
And that's sort of what you're talking about, is how cheese can shape the meta.
And
because if you played the mage, then you would get cheesed.
And it also sort of, like, prevented something, right? Like, mages in the Soul Lane are kind of really powerful. You can play characters there that lack a lot of their critical disadvantages. Kronos, Hebo, Afro, Ra, Chunga, Hell. They shouldn't be allowed to be played in their current incarnation. They're too strong to be played in their current incarnation. And that cheese was in place to prevent it.
I'll buy that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And now that it's a little bit different because, well, Hog barely exists. Like, barely exists. Now you can sort of play different things, which I will always like. I love the idea of... I mean... I just like the idea of I'm a fan of Dota in spirit.
Tactical diversity.
But not necessarily in practice. Tactical diversity for sure. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy. One of the reasons, I mean, sure, everybody knows me as the sports guy, but I'm mainly the basketball guy, and because I spend so much time in the sphere of basketball, I like other sports around it. But the reason I like basketball is because they're like, I mean, the positions are so... There's so much diversity. LeBron James played 5 different positions in his finals appearance this year. Like, all 5. Some of the most famous people, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, Magic Johnson played 1.25 position, right? Like, it doesn't really exist. These guys just sort of made it up. And that's what I want. That's what Dota sort of gets along with. You can do weird things like double mid, no jungle. You can do, you're carrying the top lane, you're carrying the bottom lane. You can do really weird shit like that. Right. And when it comes to Smite, we started to see that. We started to see, well, you can put a Bakasora in the solo lane.
And you can also have different players that have dramatic play styles, right? Like,
and that's
going
what
to Dota.
Who is it?
It's Blackie, I think. He was this guy who was playing on Mouse Sports, and then like Vici, which is this really good Chinese team, just imported him. And usually it's the opposite. Usually the Asian teams are like they're getting it exported, right? But they were like, no, this guy's the fucking man, and we want him. And what's his playstyle? He just kind of like farms and then kills everybody. Yeah, and like that's dope. That's something that I want to see in Smite. And to an extent, we saw that last split with picks. You had Guardian style junglers like Dare and
DJ.
Yeah, DJ, sure. And then you had like Annenster style junglers like Annenster.
Setup.
Yeah,
and then even further, you have adapting style junglers where they kill you in the first 5 minutes over and over the fuck over
and weakened
again.
Style junglers where they sit on your solo lane.
Exactly.
Just sit on top of them.
And that's what's fun. It's fun to have that sort of diversity. I really enjoy that. And that's why I was excited coming into this patch. That's why I held my tongue coming into this patch. I wanted to see what the pros would wind up with. And I mean, I can't really ask you what y'all are doing. You've mentioned a lot of
we're playing 5
jungle.
ADCs.
Is double jungle the only option?
No, the only option is to play 5 hunters. Hunters are the best class.
You.
Yeah.
So double jungle is
I think you would be moronic not to explore every strategy if you call yourself a professional team.
Of course. Exactly. And so do you think coming into the LAN in 2 weeks that we'll see a stable meta, if you will?
Maybe. I don't know about stable. A stable meta is like where it's like, yeah, this is the thing that you do. I think by nature of the patch, it won't be stable. Right? Like, if tactical diversity is a thing, it won't be stable. Because even then, to some extent, you should have shifts to, like, what is better, or at the very least, what the better people were doing. You know, and that's sort of like a chicken and the egg sort of thing. Like,
exactly.
Is C9 playing the best meta, or is C9 just the best team? Whatever.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, that's a really big part of it, because that just gets exciting for coaches. And that gets exciting for shot callers and people that are making the strategies and stuff, because that's where we're at. That, I believe, is what truly makes
Epender bringing up a good point, right? Like, so the meta will be written at the LAN. Like, over these next few weeks in the Hitbox Invitational and whatever, teams are collecting notes. But at the LAN, that's where the notes are going to come together, and, like, out of it will come the God-sent meta bestowed unto us to play in our casual and ranked matches.
and obviously, well, first of all,
a meta wrought in Annenster and Cyclone Spin.
Evidary is coach for Fnatic, but this is what happens every single LAN. There's a sort of sub-meta, because the LANs are where players make a lot of their dough, right? Pure tournament winnings. So what happens is we'll see players do more drastic things than they might in SPL, because there's a little bit more on the line. So bringing out odd picks or changing drastic strategies or drastic itemization choices to combat against other drastic choices. We generally see that happen a lot of the time. I mean, Bakasura solo, famous, it happened at LAN for the first time. Ao Kuang solo was, I don't think it originated at LAN, but it was really successful at LAN for the first time. And that's really where we see these gigantic things that, again, become the meta. It's people playing against what people play in, like, round 2, round 3, because that's really what it's all about. So that's interesting. I think that the meta will be written before the LAN, right? Players will go into the LAN with their ideal strategy, and then the teams will fight.
Well, and in doing that, they write in fighting, they write the meta.
Exactly. So
It
that's,
might, be, and that's how it's happened before. Maybe this is going to be a little bit too complex for that. We'll see, just because there's so much going on.
yeah. I'm expecting, I'm expecting Team ABC to come with Meta 1, Team DEF come with Meta 2, and how many teams are being invited? I'm expecting to see 2.5 separate starting metas, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm expecting to see at most 2.5, 3 starting strategies. I really am. From the first games these teams play. Now, after those first games, I think things will settle down a little bit. Teams will respond to what they're doing. But I think you're going to come in and see, like, wow, Team A is starting back camps to all clearing the buffs. Team B is doing double jungle. Team C is just going straight to lane because they're stupid. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm expecting to see a couple of different things happen, which is really exciting to me. That is, like I said, I mean, I like Dota in theory, not necessarily in practice. I'm just not a big fan of a lot of things in the game. One of the things that I like Dota, like basketball, the game is so malleable. If your team, and that's really where it's at because I care about the players, right? The players have certain play styles, and when the game can bend to your play styles, that's what's exciting. If you want to play a superstar team like Weekend and Incon on AFK, they just Cyclones are superstar. Our whole game depends on getting that soul lane boosted up. Sweet. Or if you want to play Voltron like Titan, everybody's equal. Communism will rule. Let's everybody do together. That's awesome too. As long as the game is malleable enough to do that, I'm down.
Yeah, totally. So
that's what I want.
You mentioned that players make most of their money at LANs, and that's still true, but recently that changed. Because recently, players made all of their money at LANs, or they didn't go to LAN, they didn't make any money, hope you can stream. And I actually talked to Sausage from Upcoming Stars, and asked him what Smite-related sources of income he has. And aside from the SPL, which granted was already paying out, but like now with the pricing changes, that pay has gone a lot higher. And he said he can't stream, his internet's not good enough. Sucks. He can't make videos because his computer's not good enough, which sucks. And Upcoming Stars aren't a sponsored team, and to be fair, I don't think every sponsored team is necessarily getting a salary either. So for some players who aren't on the top teams, who don't have a strong stream presence or a YouTube presence or have a sponsorship and aren't going to LANs, up until recently, Smite was a little bit less of... They're still pro players, but it's a little bit less professional and a little bit more of a hobby. In that it takes time and money. It doesn't give time and money.
Right, and you know that this is something that I personally have felt for a while because I mean, so there's two things that give prestige to winning a award, tournament, etc. And you look at something like Smite. Smite is growing,
sure,
but it's still on the small side of growing. Why do you, as a professional player, Krett, want to win Worlds?
Because Worlds has a dope prize pool, and I want to buy a Lamborghini.
Sweet. Last part might have been tongue-in-cheek, but first thing that comes to mind is...
No, we're all getting matching Lamborghinis when we win Worlds.
It's a prize pool. Why does any NBA player in the world, even the rookies getting paid $600,000, want to win the NBA championship?
Yo, because I'm the best!
Exactly.
Yeah. And
there is a long, arduous path that I think LCS, League of Legends, have just recently reached, where the people in the LCS want to win because they want to win.
Right.
They want to be the best LCS team in the world. They want to be the best at League of Legends. They're not really, oh man, I really want that prize pool. It looks nice, and I don't think that's completely out of the players' minds. But it's not like professional sports where the players are getting paid so much where you hear negotiated contracts where player A is like, oh man, it's between 40 million and 45 million. At that point, the money is a respect ticker. It is not an actual. This guy's not like, well, if I only get 40 million instead of 45 million, I'm gonna have to downgrade to generic cereal for my kid. Like that's not what's going on here. So
Right.
the money is not a thought. When you're in Smite, it is. If you don't win land, you might have to quit and go back to your job.
Yeah, and part of the thing is that, right, like at a minimum. Now, not like a minimum, right? Like the minimum for SPL play is like what, the 2 hours that you play your games and then like waiting for the broadcast to finish and maybe you do an interview, right?
As far as your hours put in?
Yeah. Like that's like the minimum, right? I don't think more is required by Hi-Rez than that. So maybe you could get away with, let's round up and call it 4 hours a week to play in the SPL.
Sure.
Now, if you're taking it seriously, that's not a real minimum. You couldn't get away with 4 hours a week of never practicing whatever, right? Like, maybe you're just like, oh, we're the worst team and whatever, we're not even gonna play, just show up and, like, collect our, like, welfare checks. But I don't think anyone's done that.
No.
I don't think even Thirst did that in Season 1. I don't think Among Stars or Night's Watch or Enemy has done that. And that would be a shame. So, let's be a little more realistic. Let's say you're scrimming for 3 hours a week. Or 3 hours a night, sorry. Which seems fair.
So 3 times 5, we're assuming weekends
15.
are off. You're at 15 plus 6, you're at 21 hours a week.
Yeah, so 19 to 21.
Job.
Exactly. Smite's a part-time job. And Season 1, not last split, but spring split, it didn't pay like one, not even close.
Right.
Now it kind of does. I mean, I haven't done the math, but what, how many weeks are in the summer split?
Summer split is 7.
7 weeks. All right. We're doing the math.
Well, do the math, and I'll bring attention to what Divios just said. Divios just came in the chat. Solo laner for Team Solo Mid. Boosh, their mid laner, hasn't played the new patch yet. That is...
that sounds like Boosh.
Yeah, the old adage is that Boosh just doesn't play the fucking game, and then logs in and...
So Boosh is the only guy that's doing the 4 hours. Boosh is the guy.
Boosh is straight up the 4-hour body.
Maybe even 2, because like I don't think he's doing interviews.
No.
Waiting for the broadcast to finish isn't like, oh, I can't stream. He's like, oh, cool, I could go play Pokemon while like you're waiting for the cast to be like, wow, what a good play.
Boosh is never gonna stream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
So Boosh is, even if he came in 8th, is making very efficient money for his time. But yeah, so up until recently, SPL didn't pay too well, and now if you're doing the 20 hours a week for 7 weeks and you're on Enemy, that's $14 an hour.
Oh yeah,
that's like,
I mean, shit. That's
also assuming like a 5-way split.
$8. I made $8 at GameStop.
Yeah,
$8 an hour when I was working at GameStop in high school.
That's ballin'. Now, granted, that's also like a perfect 5-way split, assuming your sponsor doesn't take any, and you don't have any support staff, and you didn't have a sub for 2 weeks, and he gets paid like a little bit. Like, it might be more complicated. That also isn't including taxes, so it's probably more complicated than that. But
even
it's still
$10 an hour is dope.
Yeah, like it's money for video games. That's pretty cool, and it can allow someone to maybe spend a little bit more time on Smite. And more importantly, and this is something that recently was talked about in, I think, League of Legends and Counter-Strike. Maybe it was Sir Scoots who was talking about it on Twitter. But you need a good way into the league.
Oh, yeah.
And paying the lower teams is part of that. Because not only do you need the Challenger Cup to be a real thing and get players into the SPL, you also need the bottom of the SPL to be the sort of thing where you can devote time to get better at the SPL.
Exactly. And that's the key point. It's the level of competition. I mean, congratulations to the United States Women's World Cup team. They did fantastic. And I say that because I don't want to paint all women's sports with the same brush. Who the fuck watches the WNBA?
I do, religiously.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you're right, I know.
nobody watches the WNBA, and it has nothing to do with sexism. Sure, maybe it does. Not my conversation. It has everything to do with the level of competition. It's not that women are naturally bad at basketball. It's that you get paid like $28,000 a year if you're not Brittany Griner. So what happens is the women that play Division I basketball that are very good at basketball.
Sure. They exist.
They either get paid $90,000, $100,000. They either get paid a lot of money by the WNBA, or they're offered $30,000. And whatever the hell they were going to school for offers them a real job for $60,000.
Yeah, you take the real job.
Yeah, like I mean, there was an anecdote by somebody in my chat the other day. He had a friend that played Division I. That's the best college basketball you can. Right. She was very talented. She was offered $30,000. She took a job at Amazon paying her $70,000. So that's what happens. Because the money isn't there, you don't want to go and
you're also doing a job that doesn't like directly negatively impact your body.
Yeah, of course, and sure,
that's something that you can extend. You can extend that to the metaphor too. Like, I could get a job that's a lot less stressful than like desperately praying that Dare doesn't feed. Right? Like,
that's a tough job.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like, Smite is hard and it's taxing. It maybe not on your body, but like,
yeah, sure.
It's directly competitive, and most jobs aren't, right?
It's not playing Mario Brothers for fun while smoking
yeah.
weed.
Well, most jobs also like it's just like don't be a shitter, and you'll probably be okay and get a promotion eventually, right?
Sure, yeah.
Oversimplification, but like
gross.
There's a difference between a competitive job and like a job where
It's like some people work on Wall Street and some people work at Walmart, right? Like, it's a completely different dynamic. But really, what I'm saying is that with the WNBA analogy is that if you don't offer enough money to the bottom rung, then the players that are talented enough to be in the league, then it brings the bottom rung down further. Because if you have this barrier of entry where you are just paying everybody an acceptable living cost of living, right? Well, then everybody that can do that job will do that job. But you have people like that Amazon woman skipping over it, and that means they have to go find somebody that's worse at basketball, and et cetera, et cetera. So the WNBA just isn't good enough. Whereas you look at other traditional professional sports like the men's league, and while they're paying their players $12 million a year, I don't care what the hell you're going to school for. If you're going to law school, you're still going to pick the NBA if you're getting hired for $12 million. So that's pretty much where Smite is at. It's like, look, you can make a little bit of bread and like become slightly internet famous, or you can do what NQ does and focus on going to medical school and having a real future, right? So players like NQ did that. Players like Nantan said, like, look, I could continue to try to be the best. Nantan is probably a great example. Nantan is a player that he's moderately talented and has the capacity to become very talented.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the time. He goes to a very competitive school. Notre Dame is hard as shit. So he took a step back because it just, frankly, wasn't worth his time to invest into Smite to become the best hunter in the world. Now, could he become the best hunter in the world? I'm confident that Nantan could be very, very talented if he had the time to practice like other players. But Smite just didn't entice him to do so because the money was low.
And you shouldn't really make the argument of like, oh, just do both. Like, not everyone can do it. There are people who like work really hard and like go to school full time and like are learning to become a rocket lawyer or whatever. You know, something obscenely difficult, and they're pro Smite players. And it's like, that's dope. Not everyone is able to do that.
That's a big deal. It's tough. I mean, sure, Zimstar's out there dangling his fishing pole out there. Yeah, congratulations, Zimp. You have been doing it all, and that's impressive as hell. To be fair, you're not playing these days. But there are players out there, and I don't want to take anything away from the players out there. DJ Predicus comes to mind, who's doing everything he needs to do. He's screaming, he's playing at the pro level, and he's still doing, I believe he's in... he's a nurse as well as going to school for nutrition, if you're not already finished, like that. Right? Like he's grinding his face off, and that's really respectable.
Yeah.
Everybody has a self-will, and sure, that's a whatever. But when it comes down to it, I'm not saying that Smite needs to make everybody a millionaire, but by offering some sort of, it's just the justification. Like, if you can put 20 hours a week into Smite and get paid less than a regular job, but enough that you could, I don't know, eat a Big Mac here and there, you can look at yourself and be like, look, I'm not wasting my time. When your mother says, you know, why are you up there playing your video games all nonsense, and, you know, whether it's mother, girlfriend, or living partner, whatever, go with me, your response could be like, hey, man, like, the upside is big, and for right now, I'm treading water. And that's really what you can ask of an esports situation like that, is the ability to tread water. I think that's all the players have really asked for. And I hope that this new distribution is a step in the right direction, because this is something that I've really felt passionately about, is not communism, but spread the wealth a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want the E for effort league where, like, everyone wins and everyone gets to go to land.
Yeah.
But, like, and so I think there was an article from Rock Paper Shotgun that, and then the same author, Philippa War, reprised did a similar article about our prize pool changes, but it was about League of Legends, which has had about 2 million prize pool for Worlds every year, versus Dota that has 10 million for Worlds. And the way the Dota prize pool is paid out is that the top 3 teams in 2014 were, I believe, Newbie, Vici, and Evil Geniuses. Right?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. They were paid out quite considerably. And the 15th place teams, the 2 of them, weren't even paid. They didn't get anything. Now, sort of deep into the pack, like 9th place, 10th place teams in League of Legends were making the same money as their Dota counterparts, despite the prize pool being 1/5 the size. But what it just comes down to is also the way that the prize pool is cut up, right? Like, when you win an event, you want to take home a portion of the winnings. Yeah. And let's say we're having our backyard Super Smash Brothers 4 Wrestling League, or whatever, right? And we have $100. We have $100. First place getting 50, second place getting 20, and third place getting 10 seems fair, and then everybody else splits the 30, right? Like, that's legit.
I mean, shit, in that league, first place can take $100. I don't care.
Yeah. But when you go to the
up.
international level, and first place gets $5 million, and second place gets $2 million, and third place gets $1 million, and I'm rounding, but, like, it was literally $7 million to 3 teams.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You don't need that much, like, to be paid out like that. It's so much money that you can spread it more and better. And granted, I think the issue that Hi-Rez is addressing here and why it's so good is that 10 million in one event is just kind of whack. Like, it's kind of weird. It's cool, but it's just a weird model.
Yeah, and I mean, so in a perfect world, teams get paid salaries by their teams itself, but that requires the teams to be worth the monetary value, sure. Right? And when it comes to, and again, I'm going to drag the analogy to pro sports. There's a tangible, well, we sell X amount of tickets to see this team. We can pay these players X amount of money. That's where that comes from. I mean, you know, that's where that comes from. Esports, you don't have that tangibility. There isn't a Cloud9 arena that people go pay tickets to go see Barracuda play.
Yeah, but there should be. That would be dope.
There should. I mean, regionality helps sports, and that's a great conversation. But, I mean, if Barracuda sells 800 tickets, you can justify paying that man, you know, a portion of $800 per ticket price, right? Whatever. You can do that. When there is no, like, tangible conclusion to be drawn from how much money, you know, then it becomes very situational. It becomes an advertising conversation, and that is rough. So basically, what I'm saying is, salaries coming from the teams themselves is a long way away to be considered a sustainable business practice. Sure, some teams do it right now. Greg did it before.
But that's more coming out of like sponsorship money and stuff like that.
Right.
It's not coming like out of we sell tickets for our team, because that's not really how that works for a group like C9 or COG or whatever. Now, there's some stuff, right?
Now, when
like the merchandise, merchandise, in-game merchandise too is something that's very unique to esports. It's something that Smite, I think, is doing well on, right? Like esports chests and esports skins are really cool. But like, it's just really nice to have the money broken down across the year and that sort of stuff. And as Zimstar says in chat, you can't make money from a Smite team in terms of partnership. It's not that much because the sport's just not that big yet. So you know, you're not making that much money from like advertising pants or whatever.
Yeah, which is why we don't see those salaries on a consistent basis yet. And I say yet because maybe in a perfect world we see it a little bit later. But so that's the ideal, I think. And then the less than ideal is what Riot does. Riot considers all of their players employees and gives them money for salary.
That's kind of weird.
I actually hate it. I mean,
I think it's about as weird as like. It's about as weird as Dota's model of like there is one tournament. It determines who gets to buy bread for the next 10 years and who doesn't get to eat.
Well, Dota is weird. We can't really discuss Dota.
Dota is also Dota's weird.
Dota's independent. Dota is the equivalent.
It's becoming less independent though, because like as are fighting games, right? The Capcom Cup is a thing. Nintendo is putting money into Smash, and Valve is making more majors. So like, Dota's becoming less dependent, and I guess that's just a movement in esports in general. Maybe a different show, whatever.
I mean, that's a different.
I think the big question here is nobody really has come to a decision. There isn't a standard in the field, but what Hi-Rez is doing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, without providing a salary for the players, and I mean, I don't, full disclosure, I work for Hi-Rez. I'm not privy to the like X's and O's of these like payment contracts, right? But so the players get money for winning, essentially. So it's not a salary. It's all earnings based on wins and losses and games played and stuff. So it's not a true salary. And essentially the big take home is the tournaments. You don't really make a lot of bread in between. So the tournaments are really where you're making your money, making yourself known. And it's just splitting things up and spreading out the wealth, I think, at these events, which in a perfect world will level things out enough to raise the bar. It's all about not bringing that lowest rung of the ladder down. I think that's really what it's about.
Another excellent point made in chat from Jake Simon, who also recently had a kid. So congratulations there.
Congratulations.
Yeah. The reason publisher pays players instead of orgs is that the publisher's the one making the money off of the players, not the orgs. Now, orgs can, to an extent, make money off of players with sponsorships and stuff. Once again, not that much in Smite. Definitely more for, like, C9, where they're like, look at Medios, look at him on Red Bull, or whatever. But, yeah, like, esports right now is promoting Smite more than it's promoting Cloud9 or Cognitive or whatever. That's sort of a secondary level of promotion, which is why more money is coming from the publisher right now. But it's so cool to see a baseline level of pay come out for all teams. That is so crucial, because now the SPL means more, right? Like, for some people in the past, I think the SPL has been a hobbyist league, not entirely dissimilar from playing hockey with, like, the dudes from your office, right? Because you're not really making money off of it, you just sort of love the game, and you're good at it.
Right.
Now, it's gonna sustain you a little bit. Now it's gonna help, and that's really dope. It also shifts the weight a little bit to, like, there are some players who stream and make pretty decent money. I live in a house with quite a few of them, and the SPL paying more shifts a little bit of the weight off of streaming.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It allows the players to really focus more on the game itself, which can elevate the play skill. And then that's one aspect of it. I'm going to go the other way. So you have players like Laz's who are already very good, not at the top of their potential, because and I'm basically what I'm saying is that Laz is very, very, very good. But he could be better if he was allowed to have more time devoted to practicing.
Yeah, if we were streaming like 6 hours a day. Sure.
Right. Homie's got to pay the bills, so he's got to stream. Right? Well, now these players might have more time to practice. So the highest level of competition can go up. And also the lowest level of competition can go up. You have players that are quitting their own game. Link from League of Legends quits mid lane for CLG, still a great player, just like, fuck this game, right? You have players that maybe were challenger level, but in an established game like League or Dota, might not have been able to make it, right? You have players that have played World of Warcraft, but are working a regular job, because WoW doesn't pay that much, or at all, really, right? And now, all of a sudden, Smite is offering an opportunity where, well, if you're in the pro league, you're not rich, but you and your 5 homies can rent a place and live. Well,
I wouldn't go that far, but
with work in it, right? Like,
yeah,
it's feasible. I mean, actually,
you could probably have a part-time job.
Yeah,
like if all your homies have a part-time job and you're also doing the SPL, you could probably, you can live the life of an artist. Yeah, essentially, right? And well, that's exciting. That's all of a sudden. Yeah, that's a big step.
That's all of a sudden better than, well, Smite exists, but unless you're number one, you don't get shit. And those Cloud9 guys are already doing it, so I'm gonna wait until Overwatch comes out. You know what I mean? Now, all of a sudden, you have players looking at Smite as option, possibly, in the future. And as Smite gets larger, then these numbers get larger, and that bottom rung gets larger, and it's all about playing the long game. So, I mean, it's not even opinion; it's just fact. Like this is good. Did you see anybody disagree with the
Omega? And I feel like you were baiting me.
I've only seen, and I mean, like, I hate being that guy, but love all the guys on Cloud9, really do. They're good friends of mine. I respect them. Dog, the only team I saw complain about the revision to the distribution of wealth is the number one team, which is a fair feeling. We're the best, and we're going for making this much, that much. I'm kind of pissed. I respect that feeling. But the only people complaining about it are the top.
Yeah, and
that makes you think.
Well, so Omega's actual tweet was at Hi-Rez APZ. Winners are getting less for winning and losers are getting more for losing, essentially. Goodbye competition, hello handouts. That seems a little bit like a knee-jerk reaction, or at the very least kind of melodramatic, but, you know, then there's the next question of, if you just win everything, are you really making that much less? Probably not.
Yeah.
It's probably about the same.
Well, APC responded. First place for LAN was originally getting 20K, second 17.5, and third 15K. Now it's 50,000, 40,000, 25,000.
Yeah.
So it just kind of went up.
Yeah, it did. Now it's taking it away from Worlds a little bit, right? So it's like less like, oh, you won Worlds, now you can just buy a Lamborghini, but you don't have to eat ramen on your way there.
Or a Subaru Forester, like Barracuda. I'm not making that up, guys. That is legitimately... So, I asked Jeff Hinley, I was like, man, what did you buy with your bazillion-dollar winning from Worlds? And he was like, well, I got a new pair of shoes that I don't wear. My mom told me I had to buy a new pair of shorts, still don't wear them, and then I got coffee and cigarettes. And then I asked Barracuda, what'd you buy? And he was like, I got a car! It's a Subaru Forester. And I was just like, I'm waiting for like this or you got a Porsche, you got like a Beamer 7.
Yo, got like a Lambo in white with like the C9 logo on it.
Like, I knew it wasn't no Lamborghini. I knew he didn't bring home no fucking Ferrari. But like, homie bought a Subaru Forester. That is the most Barracuda. That is the most John Salter thing in the world. He's just like, well, you know, it's an economical vehicle. It doesn't hurt the environment too bad, and it won a bunch of safety ratings. JD Power Associates liked it, and so do I. Like, it's just a very Barracuda way of thinking it, man. So, you know, you're at the point where it's, you know, you can spread it out a little bit. But I mean, talking to the rest of those C9 guys, I don't really think that anybody bought anything crazy, even though they could have.
No. I mean, it's like a lot of money, but it's not like that much a lot of money, right? Like, it's 200,000. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
But you're not like, I'm fucking set.
No, not at all.
You're not set. You're not set.
You can buy yourself a Subaru Forester.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And, you know, my favorite thing was when Young Bae won 20,000 at Smite launch, he went to the Louis Vuitton store and he bought a belt with a big-ass LV belt buckle.
This shit was like $1,000.
It was a nice belt.
That shit was like $1,000.
Back on track, though. Polar Bear Mike, so my support player in chat. To be honest, anyone who disagrees with the change in the system is simply uneducated on how good it is for the growth of the game. Everyone gets more money if the game just grows. Anyone who disagrees with that is just kind of an idiot, in my humble opinion, to be real. Now, or maybe it was honest opinion. Either way, maybe extreme wording, right? Like, idiot's a little bit harsh, but Polar Bear Mike's kind of a harsh guy. But he's just trying to give his honest opinion. No, he looks like not at all. He does look like Becky's, yeah. No, Mike's a sweet guy, but yeah, like, it's gonna grow the scene, and maybe the bottom teams aren't putting that much work. I don't think that's true, but even if they are, right? Even if they are, they're putting in work. We've said it, you're probably scrimming, you're probably playing about 20 hours a week, and if you're doing a job professionally, and this is the Smite Pro League, so like we're calling it professional. Yep. You deserve to get paid.
Yeah,
you do.
No. Exactly. And you know, and to be fair, the dream of Hi-Rez paying every player. Let's see, calculator. All right.
Oh man, yeah.
6 players, 5 plus a coach or a sub.
Sure.
Not going to say 7 because teams have coaches and subs. We'll just say 6 to be conservative. 6 times 8. All right? That's 8 teams per league. 48. Now you times that by 2. That's 2 regions. 96. Now let's pay them, I don't know, how much a week? 400 times, let's see. You pay them $2,000 a month, which winds up being 38. That's a livable wage. All right? 2,000 divided by 4. You're looking at what, $500 a month, all right? So you times 96 by 500. You're at 480. You're at $48,000 right now that you have to pay per player
per month.
Right. So you multiply that by 12, and you're sitting there at $576,000. That is just like, sure, Hi-Rez is not a small company. That's not what we call sustainable.
Yeah. Well, and so this is sort of coming out of the prize pool, so it's a little bit... Now, partially the thing is, like, you're not really getting paid during the off-season, right? But, like, when you're on, it's... Let's round down. Let's call it 10,000 per team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, 10,000 per team, 8 teams per league, 80,000 per region, 160,000 in both regions. That's pretty cool, but it's also something that Hi-Rez can sustain because they're spending less time paying it, right? They're not paying a salary, they're paying, when the SPL is active, this much money goes out.
Exactly.
And the SPL brings in money as well. To, you know, by way of promotions and gems and etc.
Exactly. So, by making it, and that's without tournament winnings, right? That's just a straight salary. Now, I have expressed that I don't really like the idea of a company, of a league, paying its
kind of
players.
Weird. It's
weird. I don't know. It makes too many dependencies. There's a reason that, I mean, all the
Does
pro ed
Medios
leagues
get
don't pay that way.
healthcare?
I don't know.
Does
but
League
Medios
of
just
Legends
stepped
give
down.
healthcare to their players?
I actually don't
Probably.
know.
Probably.
If they're
Because
considered
if they get
employees,
hurt,
probably.
yeah, if they get if they're
But
considered employees
if
and
they're
if they get hurt.
contractors, then not.
Mm.
I don't really know the
But I
employees.
feel like if Hi twists his ankle, Riot is losing money.
Well, Hi
Is in the jungle for C9 right now. Suck it.
he is because Medios stepped down.
That's right.
Oh man.
Got
But
it.
in any event, paying a salary to the players is not feasible at the moment. And I don't really think it's the right direction to go. But by spreading out the wealth in these lands and over the splits, I think that is a way to a roundabout way to go ahead and fix the problem. I think overall that paying the lowest end a little bit more makes that lower end enticing for new teams to come in. It justifies a reason to spend time playing professional Smite, even if you're not the top. And it will overall raise the bar of competition because fringe players that are deciding whether or not they want to invest in Smite now have a reason to, because as they approach the top, they can still maintain their daily lives instead of worrying about their future. And I mean, sure, esports, you always have to worry about your future, but you can at least put food on your table. It might be ramen food on your table, but you can at least eat. So
that's dope. And once again, it's not really a handout, right? Like SPL players are professional. They're working. They're devoting time to the game. They might not be the best, but they're still good. They're still good enough to want to watch, and they deserve to get paid a reasonable amount. And with this step, Hi-Rez has made the amount reasonable. I hope that Smite grows, and I hope we get paid more because I like money.
Would you buy a Subaru?
No.
Well, Smitten says in chat, well, if you give the teams in the SPL some sort of living wage, it's probably going to free up a lot of their time that would waste in the job and most likely be used for practice time. I think salaries from Hi-Rez is a good idea. Again, it's just not a feasible amount of money to pay out
right now,
and it opens up a lot of can of worms as it just all of a sudden you start coming into as far as taxes and all that nonsense, but it's weird to have competitors being paid by the same guy. That just strikes me as odd. I really and truly think that in a perfect world, just like traditional sports, the game becomes lucrative enough for the individual teams to pay their players, because it's not Hi-Rez's job. And I mean, sure, just coming from a responsibility standpoint, it's not Hi-Rez's job to pay the players. It's Hi-Rez's job to do all the infrastructure and put together a league and put together prize pools for the tournaments. Sure, to pay the individual players, I don't necessarily think that's the job of the organizing body. And in fact, I think it creates conflicts of interest.
Yeah, it happens to do with the internet being a weird model, right? Because where's the money going from pro play right now to Hi-Rez? Right?
Yeah.
That's where the advertising is going. We don't have a Coke sponsorship yet. When we get a Coke sponsorship, then Coke can play our players or whatever, right? And I think the internet is full of people who are working and not making money. One of the, I think, biggest culprits of this is artists, right? People who make Twitter avatars and Twitch icons and whatever.
Yeah,
they're working. You should pay them and they deserve to get paid. Or casters, man, or people on small sites where it's yo, I want to make a community site for Smite and I want someone to do a thing. They're working, but can you pay them?
Yeah, and I mean,
well, it's just going to take time, and eventually there will always be things that are there will always be startups, right? There's always going to be Smite Gate, where you can see who is in queue or whatever, right? And there's some dude who programmed that, and maybe he's not making money, but maybe he could, and that's fine. But when something is when someone is doing something that's successful to whatever degree, they deserve to get paid for it.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, Smite itself is a startup sport, right?
Yes.
Like we talked about with sports is a little more tangible. Well, when Barracuda got drafted to Cloud9, tickets at Cloud9 Arena went up. Barracuda should get paid more. Hooray. Right? Like X amount of tickets for Cloud9 Arena are sold per night, so the players are worth X amount of dollars. Hooray. That makes sense. But so like when these sports first existed, right? The players, let's say, football comes out or whatever, and it's a little more popular than esports, so the players are getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the casters are getting paid? Sure. Everything that's needed right there is getting paid. The long form journalist is not getting paid if he exists even. The sideline reporter is not getting paid if she exists even. The Sports Center anchor is not getting paid if she exists even. And as traditional sports grew and grew, all of a sudden there was, well, now I want to see what the players are thinking in between quarters. Let's pay somebody to be down there because now we're getting all this money and we can do that. Now I want multiple camera angles. Let's pay somebody to do that because we have money into it. Now we have people asking for 24 hours of sports coverage. Now we can pay people to do that, right? Would it make sense to have 24 hours of SPL coverage live on Smite Game? Absolutely not. There's not enough money coming in, and frankly, nobody.
Actually, no, you could. You could just have a 24-hour talk show entirely about everything that Weekend says in ranked games and on his stream.
Right? But would people watch and give a damn? Would there be enough input of money? No.
I don't know if the Smite Reddit is big enough.
Now, if there was, that would be an actual topic of conversation. And I know you're trying to make a joke, but I'm going to go serious with it.
Yeah.
It's all about supply and demand. You know what I mean? And so as Smite grows, we might have to pay somebody to be the Weekend Watch because there's this TMZ-like appeal for the most BM jungler in the world to be looked at like a hawk and see what crazy thing he comes up with next. LOL. And that is the piece of media that catapults Smite to the top, right? Like, 30 for 30 is a documentary series based on sports that wouldn't exist if people weren't interested and if it didn't make money. So it's one of those things where the egg has to come before you can sell it. So you have to have people laying that egg. I mean, the idea of multiple in-house casters for Hi-Rez wasn't worth it at first, right?
No.
When it was Lionheart and Bart casting out of their bedroom, it wasn't worth, my job didn't exist before I took it because it just wasn't worth it to have my job. It didn't make any sense for Smite to pay somebody to do what I do. But now as the game grows, now we have an extra piece of talent that also writes for the blog and handles player, all of these things that are birthed from Smite getting larger. And so as it goes, that's what you're going to see.
And eventually
things just get larger.
Eventually you start to see also people doing stuff around the scene, right? Like it starts with the esports scene and the pro players and their support staff, and then the casters, and then a production crew, and then and this is not necessarily in order, right? But then you start to see journalists and sites and whatever, and then eventually you get Keemstar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean you have all these. It has to come from somewhere, and when it does, it will. I mean, Spiff Sinister is an example. I'm a fucking example. The guys at Smite Central are an example.
What other online? If you weren't getting paid by Smite, how would you make money being a meme?
Hate you. You wouldn't make any money being a meme because being a meme means that your image is actually just stolen. But
wait, you admitted it!
No, I did not.
You hypothetically admitted it.
But as a content creator, you do what any other content creator does, right? And if people like it, they will come. And essentially, what the deal is that as Smite grows, then the jobs outside surrounding Smite, the ecosphere, if you will grow. But it has to start from the actual game. People talk about how funny the Call of Duty scene is because of all the drama. But the drama wouldn't exist if the game didn't exist.
Yeah.
flat out.
The memes wouldn't exist if the game didn't exist.
So as Smite grows, you'll start to open up and literally create jobs, but the game itself has to be dope. And in order to nurture the game itself, you have to nurture the people that create the game. Not the developers, but the actual players.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just goes to level of competition. How many there are beat reporters, people that follow around WNBA teams, but I'm sure if you look at the amount of people employed to cover NBA teams versus WNBA teams, one number is really large and the other isn't, because the WNBA just isn't interesting enough. There's not enough eyes on it, and that's level of competition. Again, Smite, if everybody sucks at Smite and the player playing at home can outplay the player playing on the screen, they're going to turn it off.
And not whether or not they think they can, because they totally do, and you can see that in Smite game during every broadcast.
Course. Sure. I mean, actually, which we're blessed right now, where the teams, even the worst teams, I think
really good.
I think the worst player, when Sam Shrew was the worst player on all teams, he would still kick everyone's ass in
everyone.
Chat.
He was still a fantastic, like, I talked to Aurora about it, and he was like, yeah, his late game was just bad. Like, that was it. He got to late game, and he, like, didn't carry. But, like, he'll still beat your ass.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, that's where we're at. If the game gets to a point, right, where nobody makes any money except for number one, and you're sitting there and you're watching the game, and you're like, dude, I'm better than that guy. And you actually are. It's a problem, and the game's going to die. By increasing the level of competition, which is what I firmly believe is happening by spreading the wealth out a little bit more, you just create a game that people want to watch. Nobody watches the NBA because it's the NBA. They watch because it's literally the best people in the game, in the world, playing that game. That's why people watch the LCS. That's why people watch WCS. That's why people watch whatever the fuck pro, whatever
it's the game
they're
played,
watching.
and it's maybe not pure, highest form. It's the highest level of play, and that's dope.
If you just want to watch Smite, you can spectate your friend. If you want to watch the best Smite people, you tune in the SPL.
That's right. And if you want to watch the best Smite people and the SPL's not on, you go to the Twitch channels of someone from Eager. Twitch.tv/lasses, Twitch.tv/Kretuhtuh, Twitch.tv/Zap55, Twitch.tv/ whatever Polar Mike, PB underscore Mike, Twitch.tv/Dare to Care, and Twitch.tv/IG Anatoly.
Are you in a Showtime show?
No, I'm just
because that was
promotion.
Pretty shameless.
Hey, that's our show. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next week with another whatever the fuck we just did. I'll see you guys later. Peace.